Hello and welcome back to Storytime with the Dog Walking Author. Today we're reading from Relentless Blades, currently on Chapter 3, Lambert Henshawe. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Vigilantin awoke from a fitful night's sleep to find a note under his door directing him to the Hidden Pepper Tavern at 9 a.m. sharp. The public meeting with Lambert Henshawe was a good sign. However, he remained wary. After stumbling out of bed, he splashed water on his face and cut the stubble away from his cheeks so his goatee stood out, before slicking back his chestnut-colored hair. He contemplated dressing up for the occasion, but Henshawe would already be in a foul mood, so it wasn't prudent to risk upstaging him. Instead, he opted for simple black breeches, a plain tan shirt, and worn boots. He considered bringing his single-edged, curved-tip falchion, as he felt naked without it. But he didn't want to appear aggressive. It wasn't wise to go unarmed, though, so he tucked a dagger into his boot. With a frustrated sigh, he rubbed his pounding temples. Why did Grick have to be so stupid and force his hand? Though he never liked the Honduran, he hoped they could finish one job with civility and go their separate ways. That didn't work out. He'd replayed the events of the mission in his head all night and always reached the same conclusion. Grick had to die. When he stepped outside onto the dusty dirt road, he was thankful leaf wane had just begun and the heavy rains that would transform the streets into a soupy quagmire were still months away. Ox Glen may have grown into a large town and thought itself sophisticated, but until it boasted properly paved streets, he would always view it as a backwater village. Although it was still early, the streets were crowded. Prospectors creaked past him in loaded wagons, bound for the fractured crags. Some had guarded escorts, others rolled by alone. Riders on horseback galloped ahead, hoping to arrive first at a good mining spot. Once a small village, Ox Glen experienced a population boom after the discovery of Arium in the fractured crags. People from all nations flocked to the town, eager to find their fortune. Buildings and businesses sprang up overnight, each one's style matching the kingdom responsible for building it. Some structures resembled little more than round mud huts with thatched roofs, owing to the Honduran influence. Human dwellings were the most common, and sturdy pine the lumber of choice. But a few, including his own townhouse, boasted elegant redwood. They either had rectangular or square bases, shingle roofs, and square windows with simple wooden doors, functional but uninspired. The allure of wealth brought him there, but the difficult and drab life of a prospector didn't interest him. However, he knew the free-flowing quarks would lead to plentiful opportunities for someone with his martial skills. At first, he had ample work, until he lost his discipline and direction. With a shake of his head, he chased the miserable thoughts away. He trotted across town, weaving between the wagons and riders, waving his hands to keep the dust they kicked up out of his face. His talent for passing by unseen, unless he wished it, ensured that nobody paid him any attention, which suited him fine. As was his habit, he arrived at the tavern early. It was unmistakable with its rich mahogany finish, accented by the bold gold lettering and rows of bay windows that lined the sidewalls. He only knew it was the Hidden Pepper Tavern because that's what people called it. Knowing the name allowed him to sound out the letters and read it for himself. The process was slow, but it worked. His near illiteracy made memorizing names of people and places a necessity. The familiar feelings of inadequacy threatened to overwhelm him, but he pushed them away. Although it required effort, at least he could read to a degree. That hadn't always been the case. Wistfully, he remembered one of his last escort missions, a little over a year prior, when he'd met a wise woman named Cora. She explained that his academic struggles resulted from a disability, not a lack of intelligence. If he had encountered her during his childhood, his life would have taken a different course, one that would have prevented him from crossing paths with Lambert Henshawe, leader of the Saber Syndicate and Ox Glen's most notorious crime lord. Ever prepared, he jogged around the building, examining all the exits and identifying any potential obstacles that would impede a hasty retreat. When he spotted the kitchen's unobstructed back door, he knew he'd found his escape route if the meeting soured. After returning to the tavern's entrance, he took a deep, steadying breath and cracked his knuckles. He stood tall, puffed his chest out, and strutted in. As one of the superior establishments in Oxglen, the tavern was predictably crowded. The odor of alcohol and smoke greeted him, but he expected that. To his relief, the aromatic scent of smoking meat offset the unpleasant smells. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten yet. The sun shone through the windows, bathing the inside of the tavern in a warm glow. Rows of cushioned booths adorned the side walls, with covered tables arranged in the center. A polished oak bar with brass edges stretched across the entire back wall. Displayed on shelves behind it were rows of multi-hued bottles. An auburn-haired barmaid with ample red lips and walnut-brown eyes approached him. "Can I help you, darling?" she asked with a wide smile that ended in deep dimples. She had smooth porcelain skin and a curvaceous figure, evident even under the drab black serving gown she wore. Vigilantin prided himself on knowing the attractive women in town, but didn't recognize her. He'd have to change that. Wearing a devilish grin and with a glint in his green eyes, he said, "I would love that. What is your name?" His tone was velvety. "Kendra, what's yours?" she said as she twisted her finger through a long strand of her wavy hair. Kendra, what a beautiful name. He leaned in, savoring the sweet yet delicate scent of lilac surrounding her. Brushing her hair back from her ear, he purred, "Kendra, my name's Vigilantin, and I'm here to meet an associate of mine, Mr. Lambert Henshawe." It satisfied him when he noticed goosebumps rising on her neck. Kendra's breathing quickened and she rested her hand on her chest. "Oh, he's in the large corner booth." She pointed to the back. "He said he was expecting someone." Vigilantin followed Kendra's gesture and noticed Henshawe signaling him over. In response, he raised his hand. The sight of the solitary crime lord concerned him, as he was seldom without armed guards. "I'll take you to him," said Kendra. "I can manage, beautiful, but thank you so much." His mouth curved in a broad grin as he observed the blush spreading across her cheeks. "Well, don't hesitate to ask if you need anything." Vigilantin winked and said, "You can be sure of that." He'd never had problems talking to women. It came as easily as swinging a sword. They were attracted to him. He wasn't exactly sure why, but whatever the reason, he wasn't about to complain. He weaved through the congestion of tables and patrons toward Henshawe's booth. With each step, his eyes scanned the crowd. A short, furred gray Honduran, 2 booths to Henshawe's left, took a drink and stared out the bay window. His long canine ears pricked up and swiveled in Vigilantin's direction. The slight curl of the lips on his upper muzzle was a dead giveaway. He was one of Henshawe's men. A well-dressed human male seated at the table closest to the crime lord drank a mug of beer and read a book. As Vigilantin approached, the man dipped the book and allowed his gaze to linger on him for a split second too long. That made 2 henchmen, and he suspected at least 2 more. He glanced toward the short hallway that led to the kitchen and his escape route if things went badly. As Vigilantin approached Henshawe's booth, he studied the man. Henshawe wasn't large, shorter than himself by a couple of inches, but wiry. He judged him to be in his mid-40s, although he'd never asked his age. He had short, well-coiffed hair, still dark but with streaks of gray at the temples, and a well-manicured beard. Today he wore a red silk blouse, dark slacks, and shining black leather shoes. Although he appeared every bit a fop, looks were deceiving, especially with this one. He wasn't helpless, despite appearing unarmed. The corners of Vigilantin's mouth stretched toward his ears, revealing his sparkling white teeth, his eyes crinkling around the edges as he greeted Henshawe with an enthusiastic, "Mornin', boss!" The crime lord's expression was devoid of amusement as he nodded toward the empty booth opposite him and replied in a gravelly tone, "Is it?" Vigilantin slid into the seat and said, "Sun's shining, birds are chirping, we scored a large haul. Yeah, I'd say it's a good day." Henshawe pursed his lips, rolled his neck about his shoulders, leaned forward and hissed, "It's not." Kendra approached the table. Henshawe's glare stopped her mid-step. She spun around and hustled away. "That's rude, and I'm hungry." "Shut up," Henshawe shook his head. "What am I going to do with you, Vidge? I don't know what you... Henshaw pointed at him. Don't say another word. He inhaled deeply, held it, and let it out slowly before continuing. On the one hand, you brought me a large haul, but on the other, you killed one of my best earners. He drummed his fingers together. Although you weren't making anything on that job anyway, not with the debt you still owe me. Henshaw's eyebrows drew together and his intense stare bored into Vidge. After a moment, he sat back and relaxed his gaze. But now I've got to recruit someone to take Grick's place, and that's going to cost me. That means it's going to cost you. Vidge felt his face flush and he gritted his teeth. He killed an innocent man for no reason and tried to kill me. What the hell was I supposed to do, let him gut me? You can ask Bumden and Gage. They saw the whole thing. Henshaw raised a single eyebrow and cocked his head. Do you think I give a shit about some dead sellsword? He held up his index finger to silence Vidge. I don't. As for Grick, he paused for dramatic effect. I don't care what went down, but it's bad for my reputation having my own men killing each other. Vidge breathed deep and exhaled with a loud snort. He fought the urge to respond to the irony of Henshaw's assertion, as if he didn't routinely order one underling to kill another. However, you do always come through for me, and it was a big score. Henshaw cupped his chin in his hand and tapped his index finger on his lips. Okay, I'm going to let you walk out of here, but with two conditions. What are they? First, you're taking over all Grick's collections besides your own until I find a suitable replacement. Of course, everything you collect comes to me. Vidge expected this. Go on. To compensate me for my inconvenience, I'm adding 10% to what you owe me. Call it a hardship fee. Henshaw snickered. What the fuck? Careful, you're liable to make me angry. I may reconsider my generous offer. The crime lord wagged his finger at Vidge. Vidge sat back hard against the booth, crossed his chest with his arms, inhaled sharply through his nose. Relax, kid. You did good. Henshaw grinned, reached out and patted Vidge's cheek. Grick was supposed to collect from Levi Sincock. I assume you know him? Yeah, he owns the Motherlode Mercantile Shop. You're going to pay him a visit tomorrow. He's been late on his payments recently. Tell him he owes me 4 gold quarks now instead of 3. Although he didn't know him personally, Vidge felt sorry for Sincock. Even for a prosperous merchant, paying 4 gold quarks every 2 weeks was steep. He considered challenging Henshaw, but knew better than to push his luck. One more thing. Keep your ear to the ground. There's a dispute between the Valadians and the Vrogos. The Valadians hold valuable artifacts the Vrogos want. Going to be a council vote in a few weeks to decide ownership. Henshaw raised his hand and beckoned Kendra over. Some Valadian knights showed up last night. Vrogos arrived the day before. He lowered his head and gazed down his nose at Vidge. If there's going to be any trouble, I want to know about it. Ahead of time. No doubt to profit by it, Vidge thought, but didn't say. Instead, he nodded his understanding. Now get out of here so I can enjoy my breakfast. Henshaw waved Vidge away. And don't worry, I'll have another job for you soon enough. Hell, might even be enough to offset the 10% I just tacked on, he chortled. Vidge glowered at the crime boss, which only made the man laugh harder. There were worse alternatives than owing the mobster more quarks. At least he was walking out instead of running, or worse, dead. When he stood, he stretched his arms and legs before departing. As he passed Kendra near the end of the bar on his way out, he stopped her. Excuse me, Kendra. My throat is so parched. Would you be a peach and fetch me a tankard of cider? He took her hand and kissed it gently. She blushed and with a wide smile said, Okay. Can you bring one to my friend over there as well? He pointed to the gray Honduran in the booth. And my associate seated at the table next to Mr. Henshaw. Sure. You're doing me such a favor. Thank you so much. She hurried back to the taps and returned promptly with 3 ciders. Vidge took one of them. Mr. Henshaw said to add these to his tab. He took a deep drink of his cider and grinned at her. This was a poor decision, but making poor decisions wasn't new for him. Even though it's what got him into his current predicament, he couldn't help himself. She winked at him. Sounds good. What time do you leave today? 3. How about I come by? Her eyes twinkled when she said, I'd like that. As Vidge departed, his mind drifted back to when he was a Valadian knight. Regret colored that memory. Vrogos were the sworn enemies of Voladon, so he'd keep tabs on them. But he was more interested in the Valadians, not for Henshawe's sake, but for his own. End of chapter 3. Hope you enjoyed it.